How long do pool winter covers last? Well, there's a few different kinds, so we'll go through them one by one. The first one, the most simple, the most basic, is just a pool tarp, which is essentially just a huge tarp. Now, it used to be 20 years ago that pool tarps were a very heavy gauge material. They were thick. They were very heavy to pick up, like a 20 by 40 tarp and carry. It was like, a lot of weight. Nowadays, a modern day pool tarp is whisper thin. It's basically like a glorified garbage bag, except it fits over a gigantic pool. And anything, even the smallest of sticks are going to poke holes in it. And they do not last like they used to. It used to be that a pool tarp could last you 10, 15 years, no problem, especially if you took care of it and didn't drag it around to your front yard, to your driveway every time to clean it. Cleaning it on the pool probably went a long way towards helping it last a little bit longer. Nowadays, pool tarps are so thin, I rate them to be between 1 to 5 years. That's what you can expect to get. And 5 is being pretty generous. Like, that's a small, manageable pool tarp that you take care of. You don't have a lot of big trees around your pool, that kind of thing. If you have a lot of old growth trees around your pool, or your pool tarps are pretty big and hard to handle, 1, 2, 3 years maybe. And something to consider when you're talking about that is you're going to spend 3 times the amount on water bags that you do on your pool tarp. Tarps are pretty thin, but they're also pretty inexpensive now compared to what they used to be, comparatively speaking. And the water bags that you buy for these tarps to help hold them in place, they are just the worst. They do not last. If a chipmunk even looks at that water bag, it's going to spring a leak, and you're going to come out in the morning and then it's dried up and blown away. And hopefully, the tarp isn't half blown off of your pool, because that happens all the time. And I really encourage pool owners to think about that when you're weighing out the options on your pool covers. Which one should you get? Don't just look at the cost of the tarp and the cost of the water bags. Like, triple the cost of the water bags, because you're going to be replacing them all the time, and maybe even double the cost of your tarp, because it does not take much to put a hole in it, and then it's essentially useless as an isolation cover for your pool. But to bring that back around, between 1 to 5 years is what I would expect to get from a tarp cover. So the next cover I'll talk about is a lock-in cover. These are not super common. In some places, you've probably never even seen one of these. If you're in an area with a lot of in-ground vinyl liner pools, then you are probably familiar with these lock-in covers. The same vinyl coping or the coping track that holds the vinyl liner in place, you would have two of those, one right above the one holding the liner, and that second one is for holding the lock-in cover. And further to lock-in covers, there's two varieties. There's a poly weave cover, which is essentially like a tarp material, lightweight like a tarp, and then it has a vinyl bead on it, or a rubber bead similar to that of what you would have on the vinyl liner itself, around the bead for the vinyl liner, and that locks into the coping track. And the good thing about these covers is they don't take up any deck space. That's kind of like a unique feature of them. Otherwise, largely, they're a pain in the butt, and I do not recommend lock-in covers. But the second kind of lock-in cover, if you didn't have a polyweave lightweight one, then you would have a vinyl lock-in cover, which I consider to be the worst of the worst. Well, effective for covering the pool, certainly, and they don't take up any deck space, so it looks minimally bad in your backyard when you're using it. They're just such a bear to put on the pool. They don't go on easy. They need to be stored wet. You cannot store them dry. A lot of people make that mistake. If you store a vinyl lock-in cover dry, you're going to ruin it. It shrinks, and then you'll never get it back on the pool. And a lock-in cover that's 3/4 on the pool, that's useless. You need a new lock-in cover. So vinyl lock-in covers, they're my least favorite. They're a real chore to put on the pool. And again, with the special storage instructions, like, you need to have this giant vat that you store it in when it's not on the pool. So when you open the pool for the summer season, you take this pool cover, you put it into a big garbage can, you fill the garbage can with water, hopefully some algicide as well, and then you let it bake in the summer sun for 4 months, and then you pour it out in the fall season and you put it on the pool, and that thing smells like a liquefied zombie when you pour it out of that garbage can that you've been storing it in all summer. I cannot imagine the terrible things that would be growing in that water. So just in general, vinyl lock-in covers, I think those days are gone. Hopefully you don't have one. If you do, you should think about upgrading it. So let's talk about just the longevity of those two covers, as that's the point of this video. The polyweave cover, if you treat it well, it doesn't need to be stored wet or anything like that. That's the advantage to it. And if you don't have one that's especially tight and stretching out and like ripping the seams apart, you're probably going to get, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years of service life from a polyweave lock-in cover. From a vinyl lock-in cover, I think you're going to get a little bit less. And I typically would put that 4 to 8 years. And it kind of depends on how well you store that cover. Like if you drain that cover halfway through the summer season and then refill it with fresh water and more algicide, that cover will last longer than a cover that gets stored dry or a cover that gets stored with just water, no algicide. So, and also the original measurement of the cover kind of plays in. Vinyl lock-in covers get smaller every year. It's just kind of what they do. And if yours was tight to begin with, well, you're probably not going to get a full 8 years or so out of it. You're probably going to be more on the 4 end before you just can't get the thing into the track all the way around the pool anymore. That's typically how those things end up dying. So again, a polyweave is about 5 to 10 years, and a vinyl lock-in is perhaps 4 to 8 range, something like that. So next, I want to talk about safety covers. Safety covers took the pool industry by storm 25 years ago, and rightfully so. They are a better winter cover solution. The one that I have on my pool is 25 years old this year, so that gives you a look at what the upper longevity could be. That's a big one as well. It's a 20 by 40 pool, so it's a very large cover. I wouldn't say necessarily, oh, you're going to get 25 years out of it. Maybe you will. Maybe you're like me and you treat it well and there's not a lot of trees around the pool and it lasts a long time for you. I would advise most people are going to get 10 to 20 years out of their investment in a pool safety cover. And there's a few different parameters that are going to determine how long you get. For example, are you talking about a mesh safety cover or are you talking about a solid safety cover? That's a pretty big difference. I prefer the mesh safety covers. They do let water through into the pool where the solid safety covers often do not. But the solid covers are just unmanageably heavy versus the lightweight mesh covers. They go on in a snap, and that's really what I like about them. And they're highly effective at isolating the pool. You can definitely go out and walk on the cover without falling into the pool, as per their point and their function. It's not something that you do. It's not a play area for your kids, that's for sure. You do experience, like you'll have water up to your knees if you go out to walk out on one of these covers. They're not like a trampoline, like they'll just give under your weight. But you won't fall into the pool and you won't become trapped like you would with another cover, like a tarp cover. I think one of the main benefits of safety covers is that they make the backyard look better. When you don't have that standing water around your swimming pool, or you don't have a tarp, bundled up on the edge of your pool deck all the way around your pool, the pool area just looks a lot nicer. And that's nice if you live in a place where you have to winterize your pool, because you're looking at that 6 months a year in your backyard. And if it's a big black stagnant swamp or a pond, that's not all that aesthetically pleasing. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that safety covers solved, is they gave you something a little bit nicer to look at, but they also extend the longevity of, as I've mentioned, of all the pool cover choices, they're going to be the one that's going to give you the longest service life. If you found this information helpful, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.